2, 1. Let's go. It's time to Dad Up. Welcome to the Dad Up Podcast, the podcast for dads about dads being dads. Get ready for exciting guests talking about their experiences of parenting, the good and the not so good. Bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode, and let's get started. Here is your host, Bryan Ward.
Welcome to another episode of Dadup, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm super excited for the guests I have on. He and I have gotten a chance to connect over the last couple months. And even though we haven't ever met in person, we were just talking about it off air. We feel like we've known each other for a long time. We feel like close friends. So I'm excited to have Carl Eppolito on the show. Thank you very much for joining me, brother.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. When I saw your area code, which was my old original area code.
That's right.
I'm like, wait, have we passed a whole different life?
That's right. Yeah, I'm in Southern California, and you were talking about that. That's cool. Now, did you live out here? I forget. Did you live out here?
I did. So I grew up in Temecula when it was a small little town. And so from 90 to 2000, it's a much different place now. So yeah, I'm very attached to the 909 area code.
Awesome. Okay, so for my listeners who may not know who you are, I mean, obviously you've got, we're going to get into it, but you've got kind of a cool little deal going with your girls. You got 2 little girls, and you do a lot of cool videos and things like that. But before we dive into that, I want my listeners to know a little bit more about you, kind of how you grew up, your background, kind of your family history, and then let's dive right into your girls.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Southern California. I was actually born in Texas, born in Houston. And it's always the question that leads to a question. People are like, oh, did you go to college in SoCal? I'm like, no, I went to college in Knoxville, Tennessee, the high school and college in Tennessee. And they're like, oh, so did you move? Because I'm in Philadelphia now. And they're like, oh, did you move, to Philly from there? And I'm like, no, I went and did a startup world in San Francisco for a little while. And it's like, so that question always like leads to a question. It's it can be cumbersome at a cocktail party, but yeah. So grew up in SoCal, then Tennessee, very, very different worlds. Went to Silicon Valley, fell in love with tech, all things tech, social, and so on. Went to business school at Villanova and here in Philly, and then started my career professionally in the software space. Met my ex-wife, have 2 beautiful daughters. Sophia Rose is 8, Mia Bella is 6. And when they were 2, right when they turned 2 and 4, their mother and I got divorced, and it really made a massive shift in my life because I did travel a ton. I traveled about 180 days a year before that happened. And when when you kind of go through an abrupt situation like that, which, it is never desired. But unfortunately, probably half of your listeners have experienced it in some capacity. You have 2 choices. You can change the environment around you because now you have to be a dad, or you keep the environment around you the same because you have to be a dad. And I'll explain later what those 2 mean. But for me, it meant, I'm going to be a dad first. I didn't have a great dad growing up, and I knew that my daughters aren't going to have that experience. If you want to change generational bonds, we're all products of our own environment. So to be a product of your own environment, that simply means that as an adult, you had experiences as a child, and we're all going to be products. That product either be the same or that product will be very, very different. And I made the choice very early on that my children's product will be very, very different. And I parent in a very different way. It's a very non-traditional way. And then, as you have seen, I started to share that online a little bit.
Okay, so cool. So now, I'm glad that you brought that up, kind of your family history as far as you growing up with, kind of not the best relationship with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had the same thing. My parents, stayed married their whole life. My whole life. They're still married today. But I had a good relationship with them, but not a great relationship with them. And they worked a lot, so they weren't they weren't really involved in the things that I was doing outside of school, like extracurricular activities like sports and stuff. They just couldn't attend. They just couldn't come to those things. And I knew at the time, I knew when I was in high school that when I did have kids, I was going to make sure I was involved. And that's why I've been so involved in my kids' lives. And now they're both, both my boys are adults, 20, going to be 23 next week. And my youngest is 20. So, but I have coached everything that they've been a part of, all the way up through high school. And I was at everything that they did, everything, from school functions to parent teacher conferences to sporting events. I mean, everything that they were involved in, I was involved in, because it was important to me, because I didn't have that as a child and I wanted them to have that. So seeing that you've kind of had that same experience. You didn't want your girls to grow up in the environment that you grew up in.
Yeah. So in my house, my dad was at everything. He was my coach in baseball from, second through up until high school.
Okay.
My house was a very old school house. I mean, I was beat to greatness. I was a National Merit Scholar in school. One, because I was intellectually capable, but two, I was scared shitless to bring home. And it's just the truth. Like, the worst days of my life, Bryan, this is what I was telling you. Like, I'll be real candid. The worst day of my life, I can tell it to you. I was 12 years old. I was playing catcher. We were the best team in Little League, and I overthrew third base in the game-winning run scored. Oh. I was mortified on that drive home. Like, so, going 0 for 3 in my house, you were heading into a bad day.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what's really bizarre about that. I don't recommend the ways in which he motivated me. I've never laid a finger on my kids. I got the shit beat out of me. But he got the best out of me in a really sick way. And I don't think you can overlook that. There's got to be ways of pulling out potential. There are plenty of parents who do not pull the potential out of their kids.
Right.
We in the athletic world, we see it all the time. Wasted potential. So I knew that I did not want my kids to hate me, but I also knew that, and especially with their mother was a Division I, athlete, and she's very smart. And so I kind of knew what their blood type was. I'm like, so I know that it's in them. How I went about it became very, 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 very calculated, extremely calculated. My daughters are not feared. I don't stand over my daughters. I get on their level. Right. I don't want them to ever be fearful of a man. I also want them to respect authority and respect men, but on their level. It's never a fear tactic. We don't raise voices in my house. Now, I break that one from time to time. When I do, I have to apologize to them. Right? Whatever they did that got them in trouble, they're not responsible for my actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I break one of our rules, I don't care what the reason is, and neither do they. They expect dad to apologize. And I think a lot of parents get lost in that. They're like, oh, well, we don't apologize to our kids. And what I say is that it has nothing to do with me. When my daughters mess up and I'm not around and I'm not in the room, they need to know that, hey, my dad can apologize to me. I can apologize to whoever I hurt.
Right.
Like, that's the logical sequence that I'm trying to instill in them, which before I was a single parent, I never would have thought like this.
Right.
Ever. All of this happened because of survival tactics. They would be 2 and 4 and we'd be in the grocery store, and I needed them to not have a breakdown. I needed them to not scream and not grab this. I had to get the grocery store shopping done. So I came up with a lot of things that I wish I could say I was some savant or some brilliant dad, but the truth is I had to get groceries bought. And then when I step back to look at, all right, well, some of this worked. Like, what was it? Then I've just compounded on a lot of it.
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting that you bring up, I would say that you were kind of raised and you were motivated through fear. And it was kind of the same thing for me growing up. I was really good in school, always got good grades, but I did it because I was scared of what my dad would think or what he would do. And I think that's it's not a good approach for kids. At the same time, I'm not a big fan of, I see a lot of parents that coddle their kids and accept them just not doing their work and things like that. And I don't agree with that aspect of it either. But raising your kids to fear you, I think there should be a healthy level of fear. I do like to say that a healthy level of fear is fine, but raising your kids to be overall scared of you and your reactions to things is not healthy.
Yeah, we just had parent teacher conferences, and so my mom was a Catholic school administrator, principal, and teacher for 25 years, and so my daughters go to Catholic school. So not only am I the divorced dad, which has a stigma that I never knew existed, because I was never in the world, and whew, does it exist? And then now people know me because of my social profiles, and then they definitely don't expect some of the things that come out of my mouth at those conferences. So the two things that I don't lose sleep over are grades and goals, meaning I don't lose sleep over the grades you get, and I don't lose sleep over how many goals you score. But what will get you grounded in this house? Did you know about the test? Did you study for the test? Did you know about your game? Did you practice for your game? And whenever my daughters have games, they have two rules, and it's to play hard and run fast. Look, you play hard, you run fast, good things are going to happen. Sometimes that goalie, she's just on one. Sometimes, especially in basketball, sometimes you get three cheap fouls. Like,
right.
So sometimes you're just feeling it, and you put up 30, and you couldn't tell me why you did anyways.
Right.
So if you control the controllables, which they don't know what that means yet. So I put it in different terms, like if you run fast and you play hard. And then in school, it's like, look, did you know about the test? Just study the test. You do those things. I don't care about grades and goals. And, teachers don't always see eye to eye with that. They also don't see eye to eye with, how my form of punishment maybe versus others. And that's fine. I already accept that. But yeah, it's, like, I don't look at the report card. Like, if it's something, egregious, I'll already get an email. But grades and goals to me are only a reflection of, did you study for the test and work hard? Yes or no? And then when you're in a game, you play hard and you run fast. You do those things, so you'll score more goals than not, and you'll make more good grades than not.
Yeah. It all comes down to preparation. And well, let's kind of segue a little bit, because you kind of mentioned it. I mean, I know you have I don't know, what is it, 150,000 followers or something on TikTok, and you've got quite a few followers on Instagram and all that.
Yeah.
But you do a lot of fun videos with your girls, and now they're 8 and 6, so they're young. I know a lot of people that don't want their kids to be involved in social media or have social media access. I know a lot of parents, because I coach the high school level. I know a lot of parents that don't want their kids' pictures being put on social media.
Right.
And you've kind of taken the opposite approach, which is, obviously your choice, you and your ex-wife's choice. But these videos they're fun. They're entertaining. Your girls enjoy them. So what inspired that? What got you to kind of start doing that?
Yeah. So there's two parts to that. And the first part I'll go by briefly. When we got divorced, it was a very public divorce in my small town. I wasn't expecting it. And it was really depressing. I mean, Bryan, I've never been fired from a job. I've done very well professionally. And in my first year and a half, I was fired from 2 different jobs. It was really depressing. You go in a house that's silent, and you walk past your kids' rooms. It's not because they went to college. It's because they're not living in this house on this day. And
Right.
I did not handle that well. And so what I found myself doing was, how many parents complain about like, oh, I got soccer on this night and basketball on this night, and we're doing this and we're doing that. I was the parent that like, I couldn't wait to get to ballet,
Right.
see my kids. I couldn't wait to go to gymnastics. I was the happiest at gymnastics, and they have this, and where their gym is, you walk upstairs to this big platform so you can look down on the kids doing it, and all you hear are just this bickering and this gossip. I'm glued to the wall, to the glass. And this is when she's like first learning, tumbling, and I'm like recording. I was the happiest dad at all their activities, because what I noticed was those moments with them were the literal pure joy moments in my life. And it probably got me through that first year and a half. And because of it, me and my girls we just bonded at a really awesome level. So that's kind of the first half of it. We do have a very unique bond. The second half of it is, I know that my ex-wife isn't a fan of the social media. I understand why. I understand the parents that are against it. I totally do. Generationally, this has always been a thing for parents. The what has changed. So social media, like the what always changes. It's,
Mhm.
are you hanging out with kids smoking cigarettes, or all the skaters, or all the kids that have that have weed? It's, I can't get a hold of you. Here's a pager. Everyone's scared of something all the time. It's always happened generationally. Um, I come from a house that my daughters, for example, they both actually have their own rifle. They've shot guns. That theory is only because I never want them at little Johnny's house, and then they see little Johnny's dad's gun. They get curious and excited about it. And that's how someone gets hurt. Like, my daughters know what it feels like. They know what it looks like. And they know that if they're not in this house, they go very, very far away from it. I teach social media the same thing. They don't have their own social media accounts. We only have mine. We've talked about maybe when is a good time for you to have your own. We talk a lot about, just like with the rifles, like they have to show where the safety is. How do you point it down even when you hold it? Fingers like this, never like that. Those same protocols are with social. I don't ever want them to go to a friend's house who does have a phone and does have TikTok, and then all of a sudden it's like, what is this? And
Right.
then now my head, you can't control an 8, 9, 10-year-old's head, right? So now your head is just down in, all the way down in the dumps. And so I've brought them along. I've shared the experience with them. When my accounts blew up, I did go through and I took out anything personal in my accounts. I even took out a lot of things with my girlfriend because, she didn't ask for this.
Right.
Like anything that has my house in it is off. Anything with anything remotely identifiable, I've gone through all of my social profiles and have deleted. I mean, now my accounts are, I talk about being a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
talk about my faith a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe a lot of people that are single parents, they don't truly believe that they're welcome in the church. And I'm like, yo, look, if you actually knew who Jesus hung out with, you'd be surprised, because
Right.
you happen to have this big heart for the broken. And so you're kind of like his people. And I share it just like that, like very basic. And then I share my single parenting stuff. And some of the single parenting is very, is serious. Sometimes I talk about how I wish that their mother and I would be better co-parents. And in that message, I say, this isn't on her. This is on us. Like, this is an us thing.
Mm-hmm.
I released a video a few months ago that I still pinned to keep it high, where, none of my social has anything to do with her. Like, she's not the villain in this story. You don't need to bash your ex in order to
Right.
be a better parent. That doesn't have to happen. It doesn't help anybody to do it. And then the last leg of it is the stuff with my daughters. Now, the stuff with the daughters, I for TikTok, yeah, we have 150,000 followers. It's girl dad _ single dad. If you guys want to check it out,
That's cool.
and it's part of a lot of content. Maybe every 4 videos, me and my girls are dancing, doing one of the trending topics. On Instagram, I never would have imagined. So, and we can talk about this later, but the way that Instagram's growing is very, very, very specific. And I was just repurposing my old TikTok content for Reels. I've never made anything purely for Instagram. And one of the dances got 25 million views of me and my daughter. And then another one has 6 million, and then one's got 3 million, and like 4 have over a million. And my account went from 3,000 to 30,000 in 8 weeks on Instagram. But that's almost all me and my daughters. The point of all of this winded point is that my daughters and I, we do share moments together. Mm-hmm. We are not an average father-daughter hierarchy type of relationship. Right. We do things that are funny. We do things that are goofy, and that allows us to do the things that are serious. And what I have found, and I wish I could show you my messages because they're by the hundreds. I get them from kids that say, I wish my dad would have been goofy with me. Right. My dad never would have done that with me. Bryan, it's a 30-second video.
Right.
Or the one that breaks my heart is that it's, people that say like, oh, like, why do you let your daughters do those dumb little things? I get it. It might be a dumb little thing, but I promise you that like your 12-year-old just heard you say it's a dumb little thing. And we don't think that's a big thing. But now that 12-year-old is in their room by themselves thinking that they're a dumb little thing. That happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I'll get messages from people that are saying, hey, we saw your videos. So I asked my son if he wanted to make one, and it's brought us together. It's brought us closer. Mm-hmm. I never would have imagined that. Bryan, we got stopped at my daughter's school craft fair by 2 families that say that they have seen
that noticed you.
That was I wasn't expecting that. And they say, yeah, we do them as a family now. And now my daughters have got this little, people know that that they're the ones that do it. But it's been a blessing, because my hope is that a lot of people realize that you don't have to do the big crazy things to have moments with your kids. Like trips to Disneyland are awesome. They're great. 60 seconds to film a really silly little video with them and be goofy with them, and maybe even like wear something a little goofy with them, mm-hmm. goes so long. It goes so far.
Yeah, it's the bond that, like you had mentioned earlier, you alluded to it earlier. It's that even though it's not, believe it or not, it's not silly to them. To us as adults, it's silly, but to them, it's not. To them, it's, hey, I'm doing this with my dad. I'm doing this with my mom. We're doing this as a family. This is fun. And so that's what I think is cool about it. And it's interesting. I had a long time ago, over a year ago, I think, about a year ago, I had Dogface on my show. And if for those of you that may not know who he is, he's the guy that drinks the cranberry juice, rides the skateboards, and to Fleetwood Mac songs. Mm-hmm. And that little video blew up, and now he's gone viral, and he's sponsored and all this other stuff. But it all started kind of like what you're talking about. He made a goofy little video with his daughter, and she couldn't believe that he wanted to do it. She was actually making fun of him. She was approaching her teenage years, but he made this goofy little video with her, and she thought it was silly, but it all started from there, and it just kind of trickled. And then he started doing these little videos on his own. And even though he's getting made fun of by his teenage daughter, he was still doing it just to be goofy, just to be silly. And it created this bond between the two of them. And now he's, obviously he's blown up. But for the time. Yeah, the fact that you're doing this, willing to step out of your comfort zone, they're not stepping out of their comfort zone because they're little kids. They're going to be goofy all the time, right? You're stepping out of your comfort zone, putting yourself on blast in front of the whole world, to for nothing more than to have this special moment with your daughters. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it. This
really
isn't
is.
about you. This is about the bond that you and your daughters have.
Yeah, so the two viral moments were on TikTok. I started doing TikTok because on Wednesday nights, my daughters go to their mom's house. So I have Mondays, Tuesdays, and their mom has Wednesday, Thursday. We split Friday. And for 3.5 years, I didn't sleep on Wednesday nights. I could not. I still struggle. That hurdle, 3.5 years of therapy later, we're still working on it. um, and So what I started to do was, I'm a big proponent on this. Like, whatever you need in life, go lead with. If you need prayer, go pray for someone. If you need a friend, then go be one. If you need financial reward, take a little bit that you have and go put it to use. I just massively believe that. And so I needed prayer on Wednesday night, and I started doing open prayer requests on TikTok on Wednesday nights. And that's how the whole entire thing took off. And I think last Wednesday we had 1,500 people. We've been doing it for 66 weeks now. But that's where it started from. And then it has grown, from there. And with the girls on Instagram, it started from just sharing one video of me and my daughter. I did know that I wanted to grow Instagram. I didn't want to grow it in the same way I grew TikTok. A lot of the themes are the same, but I wanted it to be about sharing experiences with my daughters. I really did want that. I wanted it to be known that as a girl dad, there's ways that we can parent. There's ways that we can build up young women. There's ways that we can build up young men to lead women, right? We've got men and women have biological differences and they're okay. And, the fastest way to raise a strong, independent woman that breaks through glass ceilings is actually if you embrace their feminine. So people ask me, why do I get my toes painted? So every time me and my daughters get a pedicure, they each get one big toe to paint. And I'll go with them to get pedicures. And people ask all the time, like, if I'm like, oh, when I'm in the gym in the steam room, I always get the eyes that look at my toes. And I'm like, yeah, and then I get to share my story. Like, the fastest way to raise strong, independent, glass ceiling breaking women is to embrace their feminine. And I think there's a lot of parallels with having young men in the same exact way. So it's been these shared experiences. And I'll tell you, I've had so many dads, and you included, tell me that there's nothing you can buy your kid that's more than a memory.
Right.
There's nothing. There's not a toy they want that they would rather have, an afternoon with you.
Right.
And I never knew that when I wasn't a single dad. But then when they got taken from me half the time, and half the time I literally don't see them or I can't be with them, I'll tell you, I know what that means now.
Right.
To my core.
Right. Yeah. It's powerful. Well, I congratulate you on the way that you're not only raising your daughters, you and your ex-wife, the way that you guys are both raising your daughters, but the fact that you guys, you in particular, but the fact that you're creating these special bonding moments with them that you'll have forever. Which is really cool. And I mean, I can just imagine where it's going to go from here when they start to get a little bit older. And maybe the videos aren't so much silly anymore. Maybe they're more educational, or maybe they're more about the relationship that you guys have. I think it's really cool, and I commend you for it. So
thank you, brother.
I did want to ask you one more question. I know we're about out of time, but I wanted to ask you one more question, and we did kind of talk about it real briefly, but you kind of mentioned that your daughters kind of asked you or toyed with the idea of possibly getting their own social media account. And
yeah.
you guys really aren't sure what that age is. How do you feel about that? What kind of advice would you give to parents that maybe kind of deciding whether or not that they want their kids or should allow their kids to have social media?
Yeah. So I know where my boundaries are, and I'm working back from there. So I know that the answer is that they can't have one. I mean, this is very simple child parent 101. The stronger resistance you put, the more rebellious they'll be. And not Not always, but I will tell you that the ones that become very rebellious in that scenario, I could name names from kids I went to high school with that rebellion, it shoots so far that you can never overcome it. Um, so I don't want them to not have it, not know what it is. I don't want curiosity to keep in. Curiosity is the devil's playground. I also knew the kids in high school that didn't have any rules. We knew whose basement we could party in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know those are my boundaries. It's tough for me because my 8-year-old's getting a phone this year for Christmas. And as single parents, we view this very, very differently because that phone is my mechanism to call her. She can't call me all the time. And that's not the saying that her mom doesn't let her. It's when she's laying in bed and wants her dad, she has to go and get her mom's phone. Her mom doesn't always want her playing on her phone. I don't want my daughters always playing on mine. So I totally get that. And so I think I'm going to go back to the iPad touch route, which I haven't had one of those in years. And as long as it has internet connection, you can FaceTime and use it. It also has all the apps on it. And we talk a lot about what it means to have responsibility. And look, we do go to church every Sunday, and I tie a lot of things into my faith. One of the things that Jesus talks about is, what have you done with the time, talents, and treasures that God has given you? When you get to heaven, he's gonna say, hey, with all the time, talent, treasure that I gave you, what did you do with it? Did you spread the word? So on and so forth. And so very simple. I share that with my daughters. Like, look, you're gonna get your phone, or in this case, her iPad touch, and you're gonna have the ability to do things on this. And we're gonna start with a little. And what are you gonna do with a little? Are you going to abuse the little or respect the little? And then showing what you do with the little, you'll get a little more. And I hear this, I do this with people that I coach professionally. I'm like, look, like, you say that you want more time. Well, what did you do with the time that you had?
Mm-hmm.
Why is God going to give you more time when the time you had, maybe you watch Netflix all day?
Right.
So that teaching element is how I plan on doing it with the girls and with social media. It gets difficult because some apps I can have a parent, like child, like on YouTube, I can monitor certain things. On TikTok, you can't as much. They don't even care what Facebook is, which is hilarious.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of Snapchat. I have it. I'm not on it. I don't really like it. Instagram and TikTok are the first two that I'll have to address. And I have such a big TikTok following that they're all going to go follow her, and she'll have a whole bunch of police officers kind of like looking over her. But I think it's something that you've got to go hand in hand with your kids on. I think it's something that they have to be able to come and talk to you. Like, there's my last example. There's a bunch of creepy people. I mean, if you saw my messages from men and women, like, you would blow your mind. And
Right.
I mean, and you know that it would blow your mind. And I'm telling you, take that thought and triple it. There's a lot of really creepy people. When my daughters get a creepy message, I need them to come and tell me rather than them being scared to tell me because they don't want me to take it away.
Right.
That's the actual battle that I personally will face.
Right.
Because y'all need to come and tell me these things, not so I can take it away and say, oh, I was right, your behavior. None of that matters. What matters is good choice, bad choice. If a bad thing happens, you come to me. We have a rule in my house. You tell the truth, you never get in trouble. You got to handle that all the way around.
Right.
Like, I want to get them in trouble sometimes, but you bring it to me. Let's face it together.
Right.
I think the minute when we lead with social and we're so hard on social and they get themselves in those positions, they're going to try to figure them out on their own and not come to you. And I think that's when it gets dangerous, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you've we're kind of talking about there is just, I think it comes down to the communication level, right? Their ability to come communicate with you and for you to communicate with them, and without this lack of respect or fear to communicate. So the fact that you're kind of explaining to them and showing them what this stuff is now, to kind of prepare them for when they do have an account, or get their own accounts. And the fact that you continue to communicate with them, and the bond that you have, I think they'll be fine. So that's cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. If my listeners want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, go check out your TikTok with your daughters, all that stuff. Where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. So on TikTok, it is @girldad_single-dad. On Instagram, it is simply @Carl Eppolito, all one word. I'm the only Carl Eppolito that exists, so I am extremely easy to find. EPPOLITO, and then it's also linked into my TikTok as well, girldad_single-dad. So yeah, y'all come check it out. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think about it.
Awesome. Well, listen, Carl, super glad that we've gotten a chance to connect over the last few months. Looking forward to seeing more of the stuff that you're doing. And I appreciate our friendship and continuing to, I look forward to staying in touch with you, brother.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to meet next time I'm in Southern California.
Do it, man.
It's been one of the best things. I've met a handful of people, real short version, a guy I've become friends with on TikTok. He was in prison from 17 to 32.
Wow.
And he made these videos that were just so mentally captivating. So he gets out, he's doing some things. We become friends. He has a huge following. He was driving through from Florida to New York. He drove right by my house, stopped by my house. Him and his girlfriend had dinner with me and my daughters in my backyard. Fast forward even now, my church does a thing where you can adopt families whose parents are in prison for Christmas. And he completely inspired me. So we've adopted 2 families for Christmas whose parents are in prison. And since he has 500,000 TikTok followers, he's helping raise money, on his TikTok so we can go and bless these,
that's
these
cool.
2 families. And so, there's some not good things on social media, but man, as there are some incredible things on social media as well.
Yeah. Incredible things, incredible people such as yourself. I'm glad you guys are doing that. That's a cool thing that you guys are doing. But yeah, so I appreciate it. Look forward to continued friendship. If you're ever out in Southern California, man, hit me up.
I will. I can't wait.
Well, this has been another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. This episode will come out soon. I'll make sure to put all his tags in there so that way you guys can look him up. But I just want to thank my good friend Carl Eppolito for joining me again. Make sure you guys are subscribing to my YouTube channel, subscribing to all my links, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Dad Up Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next weekly episode. While you're at it, leave a rating and review. And if you know someone this show can help, be sure to share it with them. Want to learn more? Check out the website at daduptribe.com or leave Bryan a message on Instagram at daduppodcast.